we work on 4 different pillars of developing the ecosystem. First and foremost is to get the industry and all the stakeholders ready for research and development capability. We are doing it at a large scale in India, so it needs very special development in the country. The second pillar is enabling testing, development and validation capabilities that would scale up to not only vehicle level, but also component level as well as the charging infrastructure level testing and validation. The third pillar is actually certifying all those vehicles on a continual basis, as well as certifying the charging infrastructure to meet the local regulatory requirements. And the fourth pillar on which ARI works is developing the right skill sets for the country. And those skills are varied. They cover the ranges from power electronics all the way up to engine, power train design and safety and so on and so forth. So, these are the 4 comprehensive areas in which ARI works in developing the complete ecosystem. Yeah, we have to look at it from 2 points. One is standards making and the other is standardization. Let me first of all talk about standards. Standards normally provide a constant or a common approach towards evaluation and also for the development. It also provides minimum technical requirements, minimum performance requirements that every product has to comply with. These are usually drawn keeping in view the usage pattern, the duty cycles and actually the utilization of the new technology that is brought into the market. These standards are usually notified under something called Central Motor Vehicles rules and therefore become mandatory for all the vehicle component and systems manufacturer to comply with. Coming to standardization, that usually is done at the component level, say for example batteries or motors. The effort is to standardize the product in such a way that we can get a scale of manufacturing and an advantage thereof. It is possible to work on standardization, especially of the critical components like battery designs, controllers and even the motors and so on and so forth. The first activity which is related to standards is usually governed by the regulatory bodies. Standardization is more or less governed by the component development themselves and also usually in such cases consortium approach always helps in arriving at standardized products. Standardization also helps in reducing the time to market as well as further when the product is in the market. It also helps in better maintainability because the designs are then standard. I think it is a very valid point, especially when we are talking about penetration of EVs to a very large extent. We are not just covering personalized mobility, but also covering the buses, we are covering the auto rickshaws and taxi segment and so on and so forth. It is therefore very essential that safety of the product is kept in mind. Safety during not just operation of electric vehicles, but also charging. We are essentially dealing with high power that goes inside of the batteries during charging and from the batteries into the powertrain for driving the vehicles. Therefore, the standards that get developed look into the duty cycle as seen by the vehicles. Obviously, the duty cycle is dependent on how the vehicle is run, how many times the charging happens, and what are the ambient temperatures and other conditions. We all have seen what kind of situation arises on roads when there is a flooding. We also know at elevated temperatures the ambient temperature goes very high. What we do at ARI is we look into these ambient requirements as well as the duty cycle requirements. We look at this data. We also have in front of us the global regulations which have been derived with a lot of effort globally. On one side we have to address the local requirements, as well as we have to look at how the globe rest of the world has designed these standards. It is a long drawn process. It has taken us about 5 to 6 years before we arrive at sound technical standards. These standards are also put to very rigorous validation in the laboratories before they are even made mandatory. So, once they are made mandatory, also we look at the test data, we look at what actually the product sees. We sit with the vehicle manufacturers and also compile their use cases, and then it is a continual process through which the standards are upgraded. We also are mindful that the user sees the product as his own, and he would therefore like to have a hand on the technology. Any new technology, when it is introduced in a market, it is always desirable that the user does not tamper with the controls. Especially so for electric vehicles, it is very essential that the user does not enter into the control systems or does not tamper with the batteries and power and so on and so forth. Regarding the question on retrofitment, therefore, if at all India is wanting to move ahead with this solution, we have to be extremely careful that such retrofitment kits are designed as per the quality standards. They are also type approved as per the notified standards, and actually the implementation and the conversion happens as per the stated norms. Designing of any standard usually lags behind introduction of any new technology. Like for example, when CNG was considered to be introduced in the country, the vehicles got ready first and then the standards get ready. Similarly for electric vehicles, fortunately what we had was there was already one product which was in the market, Indian market many years ago. So, the activity got started about I think 15 years ago through a committee called Indian Automotive Industry Standards Committee. This committee has got various technical panels, and this committee is appointed by Government of India under the powers of Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. The task given to this committee is to look into the technology that is to be introduced. Along with it, also have a stakeholder consultation, and the stakeholders in any new technology are essentially tier 1 suppliers, OEMs, test agencies, transport authorities, Government of India, research and development institutes like us, and so on. We also have with us the stakeholder consultation with respect to the user groups. It is also very essential to listen and to cater to the consumer needs while formulating standards. So, the procedure that is followed is technical requirements are put in the form of a draft standard. They are run through rigorous evaluation through various committees and their expert panels, and the experts are drawn from all the stakeholders. Once the drafts are ready, wide circulation is done through either website or through email communications, and those drafts are then put through again a review mechanism. During this phase, it is very essential also to put them to the evaluation of the standards themselves. So, what we do is based on the draft itself, there is a laboratory level testing carried out, and that test data is used for finalizing or shaping up the final requirements of the standard. Once the standard is ready and the committee has finally approved it, it is then given to the Government of India for making it mandatory through a separate notification. And this is done by Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and to a large extent other ministries involved in it. Say for example, under the FAME scheme, along with the mandatory requirement, there is a performance evaluation to be also measured. So, in such cases there is a separate notification related to respective standards. Once these standards are notified, the stakeholders, the manufacturers, test agency, they all are given a sufficient lead time, so that within that time they have to get their products tested and certified. And then of course comes the mandatory certification, after which the vehicle goes in for after certification it goes for registration. That is the overall procedure. Yeah, we all are experts on handling internal combustion engine. Therefore, we look at vehicular standards and evaluation standards to be more focused on IC. With the advent of electric mobility, the test facilities that were necessary were primarily covering the component level development as well as transmission and complete control systems development. So, our test facilities to that effect were established about 5 years ago. In fact, under the government's FAME scheme, ARI was identified as a center of excellence on e-mobility. Several facilities specific to motor testing, then chargers, then controllers, and so many critical components, all those facilities were established. The purpose of these facilities is not just testing and certification, but also enable the tier 1 suppliers as well as OEMs to use these equipments for development of the product. In what way they are different is primarily because the powertrain itself is different. So, vehicle controls to that effect are required to be different. Rest of the vehicles, say for example brakes and other requirements have to be suitably modified. Noise levels, especially for electric mobility, obviously the powertrain is so quiet that there is no powertrain related noise. So, accordingly those standards are then changed. Additionally, one has to be mindful that electric vehicles have to be looked into more details with respect to operational safety. Even when we subject the vehicles for crash testing, electric vehicles have to be specifically evaluated for crash related performance and the safety after crash. So, these are some of the changes that one can see between the IC related test facilities and standards and battery powered standards. In our view, it is very important that we do the skilling upskilling as well as new skilling of the manpower at all levels. First and foremost, we look at the research and development capability of the manpower. The research teams at tier 1s as well as even for us for testing purpose also, we need a specific skill set. So, we looked at our own skill requirements. Then there are requirements related to even in research and development. This is a interdisciplinary field. So, it includes power electronics, it includes control systems, digital electronics and so on and so forth. So, truly speaking a different skill set is required, and therefore, we design specific training programs at graduate level, postgraduate level or even the PhD level. And these programs are run through our partner universities, whereby we offer degrees and PG courses. In addition, what we do is we collaborate with various academies of our customers. Those are typically OEMs. They partner with us and we deliver to them training programs for their own captive use. We also partner with institutes and organizations such as SAE, through which we have an advantage of scaling up all the skill sets across the country, because we have a very limited capacity to deliver skill programs in our academy. So, the purpose and effort is to reach out to more and more partnership through Automotive Skill Development Council or SAE or for that matter any universities. So, that is how ARI is focused.